Hello, everyone. My name is Lucian. Most of you know me from Twitter as Triangle Investor. In today's edition of CEO and Market Expert Interviews, I'm glad to host Troy Boisjoli, Atha Energy CEO. Troy, great to have you. Welcome.
Yeah, hey, I really appreciate you having me.
Thanks. I have a lot of questions, and of course, the topic that will be in focus is the proposed acquisition of 92 Energy and Latitude Uranium. But before we do that, please give my audience your origin story, your background from scratch.
From scratch. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm a geologist by background, uranium geologist, spent the better part of 2 decades in the uranium space, primarily in Saskatchewan, actually. I came up through Cameco Corporation as an exploration geologist. I had the opportunity to explore throughout the Athabasca Basin with Cameco. From there, well, also into Australia, into the northern part of Australia, into the NT. From there, had the opportunity to join their operations group, where as a chief geologist at Eagle Point, which at that point in time, Cameco had McArthur River operating. They also had the Rabbit Lake operation. The mine that supports Rabbit Lake is Eagle Point. And so spent a lot of years at Eagle Point. From there, I moved over to had the opportunity to join NextGen Energy. At NextGen, I had the opportunity to be the vice president of project development and operations, and also the vice president of exploration and community, and support the development of the Rook 1 project, or the Arrow deposit, from basically the stage of maiden resource estimate right through to feasibility, encompassing the also the regulatory, the environmental assessment work that was done during that period, as well as the engagement work that I was fortunate enough to be a part of as well, right from kind of building relationships on the ground right through to negotiation of rights-bearing agreements under that company. So yeah, I spent a lot of time in the uranium space, in Saskatchewan.
Excellent. So good background. You are not missing any experience in uranium exploration, I see.
Yeah.
Troy, can you give us an overview of Atha projects? What do you have, and what have you done so far in terms of exploration work on the properties?
Sure. I'll start off with Atha specifically,
Yeah.
pre-proposed transaction, and then we can get into the transaction after that. But
Mhm.
as a basis, Atha has 3.4 million acres of exploration property in the Athabasca Basin. We have greenfields properties in every past producing, current producing, and emerging producing jurisdiction within the Athabasca Basin. Over the course of this summer, we matured our exploration assets through deploying the largest ever multi-platform EM, or electromagnetic survey, in the basin, and did that across 2.1 million acres of exploration property,
Yeah,
with the full intention of maturing, defining tier one targets along that vast swath of ground in
yeah.
the Athabasca Basin.
That's a big one. 2.1 million acres of geophysics. Did I hear that right?
That's right. Yeah, and from my knowledge, that's the largest ever exploration program of that kind ever conducted in the Athabasca Basin. And the whole thesis really is, we have a very strong land position in what I view as the best uranium jurisdiction in the world. And then exploration at that scale is a business of probability.
Mhm.
And so then, the probability of our land position containing significant uranium resources is high, and now it's about execution. And how do you execute on a land position of that size? It's exploration at scale. It's taking a systematic exploration approach to systematically define your highest priority, highest probability targets within that land position, and then continue to layer on data, reduce uncertainty, and increase probability of discovery. And so, at a very high level, that's our approach, and that's our strategy.
Okay. What do you consider the most prospective area of all that ground you have? It's enormous ground potential. I mean, what is the most prospective area for potential discovery on your properties? Is it the Western Athabasca, or maybe more on the east side, Cable Bay Shear Zone, Wollaston Domain, or maybe Northern Athabasca, or something else?
Hey, that's why we're investing the way we're investing in maturing our exploration assets, is to
Yes.
define those highest priority target areas within our land package. I myself and our technical team have an extensive background of exploration across the Athabasca Basin. Our vice president of exploration is a guy that spent about the same amount of time as I have across multiple areas of the basin. And what we're really avoiding doing is leaning on bias and heuristics and just in the absence of data and just selecting our favorite project area.
Hmm.
We're letting the data guide us and we're letting the data drive us towards our highest probability, highest priority areas. Now, when we're talking about prospectivity, you look at the land position on the eastern Athabasca Basin that straddles the Wollaston Majatic lithostructural contact, which is a
Yeah.
primary control on mineralization in the eastern side of the basin. In my view, highly prospective for uranium deposits. You go to the west of that, and you go to the Cable Bay Shear Zone.
Yeah.
Cable Bay deep-seated lithostructural corridor that is vastly underexplored in the heart of the Athabasca Basin. And you can continue on. The land position we have in the southwest Athabasca Basin, which is currently operated by Stallion Discoveries, is just to the north of the Patterson Lake corridor and other highly prospective areas. And then
Yeah.
you go to our northern package of ground in the Beaver Lodge district. And my exploration techniques that led to the discoveries, post World War II in the Beaver Lodge district were very rudimentary compared to the exploration techniques that we have right now. And so that's a proven, known, fertile district, and we're applying modern exploration techniques to it. And so, across the land position, I believe there's high prospectivity, high probability across the land position. It's about the execution of an exploration approach that systematically reduces that uncertainty and increases probability.
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, Troy, the transaction. How did the transaction happen? Who approached to who? Was it a long process from the idea to the definitive agreement you have today?
Yeah. So off the bat, okay, our growth strategy within Atha has always been three-pronged. It's comes through the maturing of our exploration assets and organic growth through a dominant land position in the basin. In addition to that, we also have a 10% carried interest in and exposure through NextGen Energy's exploration portfolio on their SW1, SW2, and SW3 properties, and 2 properties within ISO Energy's portfolio as well. And so that's a potential that's a growth stream for us as well. And then the third pillar for growth was M&A. And so from the time I took the position, joined the team at Atha, we'd been evaluating opportunities, okay, evaluating opportunities across the board, and fundamentally what our evaluation criteria was looking for is assets that we feel had a significant amount of upside opportunity remaining in them, and opportunities for us to mature our asset base from an exploration perspective. So looking at post-discovery corridors, i.e. 92 Energy, with significant upside potential in the GMZ zone.
Yeah.
And then with Latitude Uranium, primarily the Angilak property that has a 43.3 million pound resource at 0.69% uranium, which is one of the highest grade uranium resources outside of the
Awesome.
Athabasca Basin, that remains unconstrained. And I believe the growth potential there in terms of the resource growth potential remains significant. And so that was our evaluation criteria. And so we went through a process. We had the good fortune of being a company that has significant experience in the uranium sector, and so we know the vast majority of the companies operating in the
Hmm.
district. And it was a very we approached 92 Energy and advanced down the path with 92 Energy, and then through mutual connections with Latitude Uranium, that came into the fold as well, and ended up just being such a complementary piece to the deal that we were contemplating, and they came in as well and resulted in a proposed transaction that now has Atha, on a pro forma basis after close, with a profile that I believe is unparalleled. We have we have an extremely high amount of exploration torque in the uranium sector and discovery torque, with the largest land position in the Athabasca Basin, the largest land position in the Thelon Basin, and a significant land position in the CMB of the Central Mineral Belt in Labrador. Okay, and so the three primary uranium jurisdictions in Canada, we have a dominant position in that, and importantly, we're distributed amongst that along that exploration risk curve now, with post discovery projects in GMZ and resource projects in the Angilak project.
Yeah, you already answered my next question, and that is what are the biggest benefits for all the parties involved in the transaction. But you can expand on the answer if you want. So, what are the biggest benefits for all three companies in this transaction?
For all three companies, I think coming together gives us a sense of scale that we didn't have independently. And for when I'm speaking from an Atha perspective, it's exactly what I said. It's maturing of our exploration portfolio along that exploration risk curve. For 92 Energy, it gives them the ability to increase access to capital, increase access to the ability to drive projects forward in this cycle. And it does a similar thing for Latitude as well. Access, continue to build at scale and consolidate in this particular point in time in the uranium market, with where we all believe the price of uranium is headed, and where we all, subsequently where we believe the market is going. There are real and significant advantages to building a company with significantly more scale than the sum of its parts had previously.
Mm-hmm. Troy, one question that every present and new shareholder wants to know: what is the overall strategy? Is it to stay an explorer or develop Angilak and other properties into production? What's the strategy?
Yeah, it's a multi-pronged approach. Okay, so initially, within the 2024 calendar year, we intend to go to Angilak, expand on the resources there, expand the mineral resources through expansion drilling at Angilak, while at the same time leveraging de-risk exploration targets and the exploration potential along that Angilak property. I believe that the potential for growth there is material and significant. We intend to design a drill program and stand up a program to do that. At the same time, similarly with the GMZ zone, and that's the Eastern Athabasca asset that 92E is 92E's primary asset. The expansion potential there that we've evaluated and that we believe exists is high. And the analog that I would draw is probably most closely to the Rabbit Lake corridor in terms of the geology, in terms of the alteration, in terms of the structural setting, and in terms of the mineralization that's been defined there to date. So we intend to leverage that exploration potential along that GMZ corridor as well. But at the same time, considering the land position that we have both in the Athabasca Basin and the Thelon Basin, we'll also be investing in our pipeline of greenfields exploration targets and continuing along with that strategy of developing tier one exploration targets within those two primary jurisdictions.
Yeah, majority of companies have their priorities lined up. So your priority will be in the order of Angilak first, then GMZ zone next, and the other exploration work after that. Did I get it right?
That's right. In terms of the focus, yeah, it's looking at investing in our more mature asset base and building that out, while at the same time continuing to invest in the pipeline of exploration targets. So it's really a diversified exploration portfolio, and we intend to invest proportionately along that exploration portfolio.
Yeah, but your strategy will also involve prospect generator model. I mean, considering the big land you will have that part in your company as well, right?
Yeah, and a good example of that is the deal that we did previously with Stallion Discoveries. For the option to explore on about 530,000 acres, we received about 3.3 million shares of Stallion. In the earn-in agreement, they're committing $12 million in exploration expenditure, while we would retain then a 30% exposure to the properties post earn-in agreement through a joint venture. Now, that is the structure that we're looking at. The terms, etc., obviously to be defined, but that type of process where we look at non-core assets to our exploration approach in the very near term, and the ability to advance those assets through farm out agreements while retaining exposure to the upside. And what that does for Atha post-merger is gives us just a very, very robust exploration portfolio through exposure in the farm out agreements through our Greenfields exploration package that are, in particular, projects that we view as, being highly probable, but maybe aren't core to our strategy for one reason or another. And then advancing our more mature assets at the same time through direct investment. And then in addition to that, we also retain the 10% carried interest and exposure to NextGen Energy's exploration programs moving forward.
Okay, but you are not closing the door to more M&A. M&A strategy is still active for the company in the future.
Yes, we're very bullish on the uranium space, as I think everyone in the space is, and we'll continue to look at value accretive opportunities for Atha shareholders. And when we see those opportunities, we will pursue them.
Okay, Troy, how much money will you need? I know it's maybe too early to speak about it, but maybe you did some math. You are not a producing company. You don't have any cash income. You have mass land holdings, and you will have two exploration projects, Gemini and Angilak, that will need capital. Have you done some math of the future cost of keeping all the land in good standing, finance those two projects? How much money will you need?
Yeah, over the near term. Okay, so looking over 2024, okay,
Mm-hmm.
in particular, in parallel to announcing the proposed three-way transaction, we also announced a capital raise.
Mm-hmm.
That capital raise was upsized to $22.8 million on the day of the announcement. So on a pro forma basis, and once the financing closes and the transaction closes, given the current cash positions of all companies, we'll have over $60 million on a pro forma basis on the balance
Mm-hmm.
sheet. That gives us at least a 2-year runway to 3-year runway in terms of our exploration commitments moving forward. And as it relates to keeping ground in good standing, et cetera, that transitions all the time, and that's a number that changes as a function of farm out agreements and exploration work that's done by others as opposed to just us directly. And so that's a number that evolves all the time. But we intend to aggressively explore the assets that we have. You look at where we're at in the current uranium market and environment. We're seeing $2 jumps kind of on a daily basis within the uranium spot price, which is, we've been waiting in the uranium space. We've been waiting for this type of environment for 13 or 14 years.
Yeah.
I believe that we're in the very early innings of an extremely exciting uranium market. And we intend to very I would say aggressively advance our exploration properties at the front end of this cycle.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You said, can you please repeat, after you close the financing with $22.8 million and the cash balance from other two companies, you will have total how much?
Over $60 million.
Over 60. Okay, that's great.
Yeah, Canadian. Yeah. Which that is certainly one of the strengths of Atha and the combined venture is the balance sheet, is our cash balance, and our ability to execute on fully funded projects without having to return to market and look for additional capital financing to continue to advance. We have a long runway based off of our cash balance and have the ability technically to execute with our technical team, and it puts us in an extremely favorable position going into 2024.
Yeah. When do you expect to close that financing?
Yeah, Q1 for LUR. They'll close in sequence. That's the intention right now. Q1 for LUR, and then very early Q2 for 92 Energy.
Okay. Do you plan to do an uplist on TSX or maybe on the New York Stock Exchange? I mean, it will be a solid market cap company after the deal is done. If I'm not mistaken, on pro forma capitalization and assuming that Latitude and 92 Energy combined together, it will be like 270 million market cap, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, indicative market cap post close would be right around that. That 277 is without the additional.
Without additional capital. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
Do you plan to do an uplist on TSX or?
Yeah, well, hey, it's absolutely something we're evaluating. The opportunity for us to go directly, go into the venture in the very near term is something we're evaluating in the very, very near term, and then obviously uplisting to the bigger boards, to the TSX and into U.S. markets as well. It's all part of our strategic growth plan. That comes with improved access and improved liquidity, et cetera. And those
Yes.
are all from a capital markets perspective that are within our growth plan and within our growth platform.
Okay, that makes sense. Is maybe a name change on the table, or you will stick with Atha?
Yeah, I'm a Saskatchewan guy, so I kind of like Atha, as in the Athabasca Basin. I like Atha Energy, and our ticker symbol is SASK.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's a bit on the nose, but I like it. I think it's a good name for the uranium business and a good name to be in the uranium business
agreed,
moving.
agreed.
Yeah. Yeah.
After the transaction will be closed, how much people will you have in total? And have you agreed on the people and roles in the management team and the exploration team?
Yeah, so the number of total people right now is, that's still what we're defining. We're working out. We've got org charts that are being combined and planned and filled out. From a board and management perspective, though, I'll speak to that. Kind of those are the ones that
Sure.
we've got fully pinned down right now. And Siobhan Lancaster, who is the managing director of 92 Energy, she'll join our board as exec director and continue on that role. Siobhan has a great skill set. She's an M&A lawyer by
Yeah.
background. Was part of the extract transaction and helped manage that. Has a very, very complementary skill set for our current board. In addition to that, there will be one director from LUR, from Latitude Uranium, that will also join our board and strengthen our board moving forward. They have a depth of experience on their board. They have a number of very good people that we would welcome onto Atha's board. From there, both Nancy Nomore, who is the Vice President of Exploration for LUR. She will join the team in a senior technical role and bring her team with her, as well as Sadar Gomez, who's Vice President of Exploration for 92 Energy. The uranium business in Saskatchewan and in Canada is a fairly small business. So I've had the good fortune of knowing these people and working with them in the past. Have a high degree of respect for Nancy, a high degree of respect for Sadar, respect their technical capabilities and capacity, and know they've established good teams as well. And so, that puts us in a very strong position to be able to execute out the gate in 2024.
Okay. Uh, Troy, how do you see uranium market in a year from now and in 5 years from now?
Well, in a year from now, the trajectory that we're on and the current path that we're on, I think it's really exciting, but I still think it's in the early stages. I look at, you look at incentive pricing to incent new production coming online and then staying online, and my personal belief is that it's still much higher than where we're at today. And this uranium story is fundamentally underpinned by it's just supply demand fundamentals. Okay. And so as a function of that and a function of the positive sentiment and the growth in the nuclear space that we're seeing, I believe that this uranium market is much different than it was in the last cycle. And I think it is. I think the sustainability of this market is there. You look at again, going back to supply demand fundamentals and what's going to be required to support that demand profile moving forward. And it's uranium prices, in my view, that are well north of where we're at today, and well north of where we're at today in a sustainable manner going forward in order to incent that incremental production that needs to come online to satisfy the demand side of the market.
Hmm. Do you believe that we will see more M&A in the in uranium sector in the next, let's say, 1 year or two?
Well, if trends hold, I believe we will. I believe we will. I think we're 2020, 2022, 2023, we saw an increase in activity. I believe we'll continue to see an increase in activity moving forward in terms of M&A in the space. Potentially at multiple scales, looking at micro cap, looking at mid cap, and potentially even getting into some of the developers as well. I think it's across the board from an exploration perspective, from a development perspective, given where we're at in this uranium market, it's extremely exciting times.
Yeah. Uh, let's mention some Athabasca names. What Athabasca names? What uranium companies are doing a great job in the Athabasca, in your opinion? And you can choose whether it's an explorer, developer, or producer. What's your take?
Sure. I'm a bit biased because I came up through two what I consider world-class companies. One of them in Cameco Corporation had been a leader in the space, not just on the technical front and production front, but have been a true leader in the uranium space for a lot of years. And then NextGen Energy. NextGen in my view, has a world-class asset. The Arrow deposit is a world-class asset, and I believe they've done a equally good job moving that asset forward, a world-class job in developing that asset. And so across the board, I think you have to look at the leaders in the space, and the leaders in the space in the Athabasca Basin are clearly Cameco and NextGen.
Yeah. You will work in three jurisdictions, Athabasca, Labrador, and Thelon Basin. Where do you expect any problems with any of those? In which one, if you do?
No, no, they're all jurisdictions that you can advance work, that you can advance projects, and that you can get work done in. Canada as a jurisdiction is a favorable jurisdiction as a whole. You look at then the sub jurisdictions within that, and active mines have been developed and advanced, and none of it obviously the Athabasca Basin speaks for itself, but the same in Eastern Canada and Labrador. So we a fundamental part of Canada's economy is the natural resource sector, and we have well-defined processes, and we have well-defined procedures and policies, and the ability to move projects forward. And so there's no from my perspective, there's no red flags there at all.
Okay, Troy, before I let you go, can you give us some timeline for news flow from the company? What and when can we expect, in the terms of news coming in the upcoming period?
So throughout from Atha specifically, we've got the 2.1 million acres of exploration property that we flew. We've released results from 5 of the 17 projects, and we'll continue to communicate those results to the market. Also in Q1, expect the transaction related news to come out and close. Obviously, we've got a financing that we'll have news around, and the transaction that we'll have news around. But then in addition to that, across the board, across all 3 companies, we will be planning and starting to execute our exploration plans for 2024, which then ultimately will come together on the closing of the transaction. And given the magnitude of work that we are planning in this coming calendar year, there will be a very high volume of news flow as a function of the exploration activity across the exploration risk curve that we just discussed today. So a high volume of news coming out in 2024.
So investors, stay tuned, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Troy, thank you for coming to my show. I look forward to see the progress of the new Atha, and I wish you luck with the company. We will keep in touch. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me today.
Thanks.